I have extremely mixed feelings about the first season of Goblin Slayer. This is probably the first ever anime I've watched that left me confused and conflicted about how to rate it exactly. I can see some real potential with the show, and there are also a bunch of problems I have with it. But nonetheless, let's see what we can gather from this short 12 episode series. Before I begin, I just want to give a bit of disclaimer. This review is purely on the anime adaptation of Goblin Slayer. I'm well aware of the light novel and manga, but I'm only judging Goblin Slayer as an anime. Alright, let's begin. I actually liked the first episode. There are a bunch of setup for our characters and pacing, as well as a nice introduction to the anime's style. You see, the directors are well aware that they need to capture your attention, so that you'll tune into the next episode, and I have to admit, they did it quite well. At first, I thought it was going to be a shonen type anime where the main character works her way up the guild rankings. However, the show begs to differ. We get to see the short-lived journey of a group of young adventurers clearing a cave of goblins. Interestingly enough, we don't get any names, and the whole trip introduces goblins as a fearsome enemy. We see one of the members of the group get stabbed to death while another dies from poison. This part actually made me feel somewhat uncomfortable, since the voice acting really felt lifelike, the way they screamed while getting killed. This is actually good, because it created an impression on me. The next scene that came afterwards, well, I'm not gonna even comment on this. I believe it's this scene in particular is what sparked the interest of many viewers. This is why Goblin Slayer is one of the top rated animes on Crunchyroll. Anyways, we also get to see the star of the series, Goblin Slayer, of course. Again, this first introduction is well executed. We don't know anything about this mysterious knight that clearly has experience killing goblins. But this kind of suspense only works in the first episode because it draws us in. We want to see more of this character, we want to know more about him, what his goals are, his personality, motives, and connections. We also get to see him do some questionable actions, which is, again, quite emotionally extreme. I definitely had conflicting thoughts about Goblin Slayer's character, which is again good because it subverts our expectations that maybe he's not the goody two-shoes heroic knight in shining armor. After the priestess girl gets saved, the first episode ends with them turning in their quest. A reasonable conclusion. Seriously though, this first episode was pretty damn good. It's a nice breath of fresh air from a lot of other fantasy animes. Unique setting, good character introductions. I was definitely looking forward to what the series had to offer from here on. But as the show ran, I felt like the quality just kind of went downhill. All of Goblin Slayer's cast is the most boring set of characters I've ever seen in any anime. Other than Goblin Slayer and the priestess, 3 other characters also join their party: the dwarf, the elf, and the Argonian. But here's the thing, the series doesn't try anything to make any of these characters at least remotely memorable. They just feel like mindless killing machines, where they just have different abilities to fight off enemies. Some of their developments don't even make sense. The elf says she's over 2,000 years old. Well, if that's true, shouldn't she have the best combat abilities amongst all the fighters in the group? The Argonian and the dwarf do have some kind of goal, but their goals don't bring any depth to their characters. It feels more of an excuse for the writers to put them in the group. Now, I actually rooted for the priestess girl the most because when the series began, she was the weakest character. I tend to sympathize with the weakest characters in most action/shonen animes because I see the most amount of potential for them to grow, to become powerful. Much like how I liked Leorio the best in the beginning of Hunter x Hunter. However, his experience in business and trades makes up for his lack of combat capabilities. In Goblin Slayer, on the other hand, I saw absolutely no progression in the priestess's character. In episode 8, we see her get harassed by a shopkeeper. Now, wouldn't it have been so much better if she fended off the harassment by herself? You know, to show development of her character, to show that she's becoming stronger. All she needed to do was to be more assertive. But nope, as always, Goblin Slayer steps in and saves the day. She couldn't even do that by herself. In episode 7, the gang faces imminent defeat, and what does the priestess girl do? Nothing. It's so unsatisfying to see no apparent change in her character. She hasn't changed at all. In episode 9, when the gang brings down the mirror, she just stands there doing nothing. It's like the rest of the team doesn't even acknowledge her presence. It's almost as if Goblin Slayer is the one to carry the group on and on every single time. The shallow character writing diminishes a lot of the emotional aspect of the anime. I don't care what happens to any of these characters. The way that they don't have any resonance with the audience only makes the series less intriguing to watch. I want to care about all of these characters, but the series simply don't put in the effort to do that. Like during the part where they first fight through the sewers. They go through numerous combat exchanges only for the dwarf to unleash a powerful blow to all the goblins on the ship, wiping them all out. Why not do that in the first place? You could have saved a lot of the team's stamina, resources, and one of the priestess's blessings. How come no one even acknowledges this? In addition, having the dwarf shine his powers here would emphasize his character even more. It would be his way of saying, hey, I'm an important asset to the group. You couldn't have won this battle without me. See, why can't there be times when certain characters other than Goblin Slayer pull a miracle? It would make me respect their presence in the team knowing that they all have something valuable to contribute. Speaking of Goblin Slayer, I can't even begin to tell you how disappointed I am at his character development. Simply put, there is no development to his character. All we know is that goblins murdered his village, and his goal is to wipe them all out. That's it. His goal doesn't change in the series in any way. He cares very little about anything else other than killing tiny green things. This is again very lazy character writing. His lack of identity works in the first episode because it draws us into his mysterious characterization. But now that we've seen all there is to see about him, it's almost like his armor serves no more than an empty shell to cover up his hollow personality. As far as I'm concerned, everyone's combat capabilities don't improve except for the priestess throughout the course of this season, and only having one type of enemy to fight doesn't help with the creativity. If you look at an anime like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, sure, everyone's powers still stay the same, but the enemies they fight are so different from each other that we expect our heroes to creatively adapt a new strategy to beat the opponent. The story of Goblin Slayer is easy to sum up. There is no story. One major flaw with this series is they don't have a concrete goal to work towards. Let's look back at Hunter x Hunter. Gon's goal is already established in the first episode, and the series sticks true to that goal until the very end in episode 148. The Goblin Slayer team just seems to wander place to place killing goblins. But what's the purpose behind it? Why are they killing every goblin they come across? What's to be gained? Goblin Slayer's personal goal of eliminating the species? That's way too far-fetched. It's not like any dungeons they clear have a significant impact on the whole goblin population. And here's the other thing. What would happen if they do manage to kill every single goblin? Would that be it? The end? Doesn't seem much of a worthy conclusion to me. The only times I get remotely interested in the story is when they fight, and the scenes aren't even that well done. Although I gotta admit, some of these shots are pretty cool. I also have a major problem of how much filler this anime has. They're already running short on runtime compared to the novel and manga, so why are they putting in fillers? Like, why does it matter if we know that the elf likes cheese? Does her liking cheese have any importance to the story? Now, granted, I'm fine with it if they want to have some downtime to develop characters. But instead of eating cheese, why couldn't they talk about their pasts? Wouldn't that be much better to make us sympathize with each character? The elf must have some kind of story to tell since, she's lived for 2,000 years. And what's with the flashbacks? Do we really need to know more about Goblin Slayer? It doesn't establish anything than what we already know about his current goals. Apparently Crunchyroll calls her Cowgirl, so I guess that's what I'll be calling her from now on. Anyways, why does she get so much backstory? She's not part of the gang, so why should we care about her? And what's the deal with the Sword Maiden? We know she's supposed to be some kind of hero, but how does her presence let us know anything about, anything? She and Goblin Slayer have some kind of argument in episode 9, but why is this meeting relevant? Goblin Slayer doesn't change his opinions about the world in any way. He just walks away cluelessly to find more goblins to kill. The Sword Maiden seems to praise him for some reason. Some people say they watch this for the hentai. I mean, that's a completely valid reason. I'm not judging your motifs for what you can and can't watch, but I feel that there are so many other aspects the series can improve on, like character writing, story progression, world building. The list goes on and on. I'm sure even some hentais out there has a more plausible storyline than Goblin Slayer. There's this really good site called hentaihaven.com. You just plug it into your web browser and off you go. Oh, wait, never mind. Alright, I'm going over the ending. So this part of the script was added after the final episode was released. People seem to like the ending, so I figured why not? Let's see how this masterpiece of a show is going to end. I mean, I gotta admit, the ending did what it did. Final conflicts are tied up, and every character lived happily ever after. It did bring a full sense of closure, which is what an ending is supposed to do. Good on that. However, I just can't feel but some parts of the ending seem a bit off. Goblin Slayer notices a large amount of goblin tracks in episode 11 and warns the cowgirl and the townspeople. I'll be honest, I actually like this conversation between the two. They really emphasize a sense of intimacy, like they genuinely care about one another. If only this was in the earlier episodes. The battle itself was meh, okay. However, do we really care about what happens to anyone other than the main cast? The filler characters don't do anything, the Sword Maiden doesn't help in any way, and the cowgirl doesn't do jack shit. The fight between Goblin Slayer and the champion goblin was pretty good actually. However, just as Goblin Slayer faces defeat, the moment that I've been waiting for during the whole series has finally arrived. When I saw the priestess, I was like, yes! She's not useless! Oh wait, as it turns out, Goblin Slayer was the one to instruct her to do that. Come on guys, you had one job. And can we please state the inconsistency of the priestess's girl's character development? If I recall, the last time she was in a dire situation, she literally pissed herself. So what happened? How did she become so brave? Did seeing Goblin Slayer's thick abs really open her eyes? See, there's no sense of natural growth in her character. I was anticipating the aftermath of the battle as well. Finally, we get to see what was the point of all of this. What do our heroes achieve after killing countless goblins? The fact that the priestess says that if you ask for us, we will come help you doesn't sit right to me. Are you saying that if Goblin Slayer doesn't ask for help, then no one will show up? It's not something a friend would do. A friend will come to your aid, regardless if you ask for it or not. Anyone that only helps others when requested have the traits of a mercenary, not a friend. Which really begs the question here. Are these people really Goblin Slayer's friends, or are they his henchmen? Ah, and finally, the face reveal of Goblin Slayer. I think people need to understand this. The hidden face of this character is one of the major trump cards that the show has on the audience. They know that you will want to see what he looks like. So naturally, they're gonna hype it up as much as possible. In case you're still curious, I can tell you what he looks like. Goblin Slayer has an ordinary face, just like everyone else. Look at other people's reactions. They don't seem too surprised about his appearance, so nothing much would stand out. Here is the other thing. What does it matter if you know what he looks like? What can his face look like that can possibly amaze you? Is knowing his face going to help you understand him better as a character? No, of course not. What else does the ending tell us? Well, in my opinion, the ending was too happy. Way too happy. There are no sacrifices made, no lives were lost. Well, no one that mattered at least. I don't like it when stories do this, it's way too shallow. There's no depth or resonance when endings are too perfect or straightforward. I want to walk away from an anime thinking that I really learned something from it, that the experiences of the characters within the show connected something within me, so that I'll want to remember every single detail of the story in my memory. Maybe there is and I'm just not aware of it. In case I haven't gone over every single detail, I'm going to summarize every episode in 5 seconds or less. Episode 1, Tone and main character setup. It's a really solid episode. Episode 2, some information about Goblin Slayer. Episode 3, more side character introductions. Yeah, that's it. Episode 4, the gang clears a cave of goblins. Episode 5, a filler episode that's completely unrelated to the storyline. Episode 6, the gang meets the Sword Maiden at Watertown and clears the sewers. Episode 7, The gang almost dies if it weren't for the awesomeness of Goblin Slayer. Episode 8, they go back to the sewers. Episode 9, they defeat a portal and the Sword Maiden thanks them for their service. Episode 10, the calm before the storm. Episode 11, Goblin Slayer gathers townspeople to fight the Horde. Episode 12, final confrontation and the happy ending. Well, that's that. The whole Goblin Slayer anime series fully analyzed. When I was in the midst of researching this, I was trying to classify exactly what category of genre this show belonged to. Wikipedia says it's dark fantasy, but that only tells us the theme of the whole setting, not the story itself. Is Goblin Slayer a shonen? No. Is it a slice of life? No. Is it a romance? Not exactly. Is it a drama? Well, the only drama I see is with the High Elf. Is it a philosophical or psychological focused work? No, not even a little. Is it a comedy? Maybe a tragedy? No and no. The only categories I can say that resembles an actual category is action and supernatural. But even that's debatable. Action scenes are only present in episodes 1, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 12. That's a little over half the first season. Keep in mind that action doesn't ensue for the whole duration of the mentioned episode's runtime. Our heroes never train or develop in any significant way. Well, if we get nothing but action, does the story at least have some depth or moral or personal resonance? Well, I guess you can say that killing goblins is a moral thing to do, but other than that, I don't really see anything. Maybe a reference to a fable or an anecdote. You know, the time I spent mindlessly watching this series really reminded me of something else. It felt like I was watching BuzzFeed content. After all, BuzzFeed, along with some other mainstream entertainment, present you with all these flashy video ideas, then you slog through content that barely keeps your attention so they can maximize your watch time. I don't get it. I really don't. Why is Goblin Slayer so popular? Are there some really deep hidden messages that I'm not getting here? Is there a bigger picture I'm not seeing? When it was airing, it was towering over other competitors on Crunchyroll, so obviously something made it click. Hey look, I know this is a long shot, but if you're thinking of disliking this video, can you at least tell me in the comments why? Seriously, I would love to hear some people explain why Goblin Slayer is such a good anime. Maybe you'll actually open my peasant eyes to this grandiose of a masterpiece. Perhaps I just don't have the intellect to truly appreciate the full extent of this show. Am I really supposed to find this interesting? Because I don't. Not even a little. Seriously though, I watched this season 3 times already, but I can't pick up any deeper meaning except what's shown on the surface. For me, I see it no different than a BuzzFeed video, because I don't see any depth. It just feels like mediocre content that drags on for far too long to milk every second of watch revenue out of its viewers. Of course, it's fine if you disagree with me. Don't get me wrong, I don't have anything against people that like this. It's okay to like Goblin Slayer. Just like how it's okay to like BuzzFeed. Just like how it's okay to like Logan Paul. Just like how it's okay to like Jimmy Kimmel. Just like how it's okay to like reaction videos. Just like how it's okay to like Watch Mojo. Just like how it's okay to like Brightside. Just like how it's okay to like Dude Perfect. Just like how it's okay to like pranking channels. Just like how it's okay to